The secret to manifestation lies within you. It's deep within your essence and inside of your being, inside of your heart, or whatever you want to call it. It's free, and all you got to do is call upon it. Within you is a vast reservoir of unlimited potential. But out of this potential is only so much that you think you can reach. And it is what you think you can do that limits you. Potential doesn't mean anything if you never reach it. It just means something that you could reach. So in order to reach your fullest potential, it's important to know yourself and to dig deep inside of yourself and know yourself on a very deep level. Knowing yourself goes past just what your name is and what you do. It is your essence and your being. On my channel, I speak on letting go of your past limiting beliefs in order for you to enter into the life that you want. I do this by applying stories, myths, and allegories to yourself on a very individual level. In the story, the Count of Monte Cristo, the struggle we have as human beings and the struggle we have in not reaching our potential and struggling in this life is explained allegorically and metaphorically. The Count of Monte Cristo was written by Alexandre Dumas. It was written in 1844. Now, this story is very exciting superficially. It's a story of betrayal and revenge. It's very entertaining. But mystically and symbolically, it takes on a whole different form. The way that writers sometimes wrote during this time was to portray a deeper message. And the Count of Monte Cristo was one of these stories, where it portrayed a story about you and the unfolding of your consciousness. And this was told in the form of fiction. A lot of the times, fiction speaks to us in a different way than nonfiction, because we can apply the principles in the story to ourselves. So the story starts out with Edmond Dantes. He's a young sailor who finds himself in the middle of a storm in the middle of the sea. He finds the captain of the ship that he's on is dead. Then he ends up washing up on an island. On this island he has washed up, he receives a secret document. So he has to give this document to somebody that he doesn't even know. But the idea is that the person is going to show himself to Edmond at some point. The document itself is a secret document to set Emperor Napoleon free. Once Edmond Dantes reaches his hometown, he ends up getting framed, and then he ends up getting thrown in prison. So the people who have put him in prison are actually afraid of losing their position in the government. So just to explain the first part, life is one big storm, and we often try to steer the boat in the direction we want to go, but we can't go against the waves. The waves can make our boat rock and shake, and ultimately we end up being washed ashore in the turbulent winds of our emotions, our thoughts, our ideas, and our beliefs. And these can take us any which way. We all try to wrestle with our ideas. We try to wrestle with things around us, within us, all over us. It doesn't matter where it comes from, to try to find a safe haven of rest, of peace, of tranquility. But ultimately, we struggle to find it. And we are all Edmond Dantes. The secret document that Edmond received in the beginning of the story is the secret that we have an emperor within us, this latent ability within us that needs to be set free. In the story, it's represented by the Emperor Napoleon, and applying this to us, it represents our treasure trove within ourselves, that mighty emperor in all of us. So now, in our attempt to try to steer our boat in the middle of a turbulent ocean, we try to find a place to set anchor, a place that we can hold on to protect us from these wild storms. So we end up washing ashore somewhere. We end up finding some kind of refuge. But in reality, many times we're misled by false ideas of money, of greed, of power, or some kind of vanity. And many times we think that having this kind of security can protect us from the storms of life. So these are sort of like the anchors that we hold on to. These ideas of power, money, relationships, certain ideas, certain beliefs. And many times we lose ourselves in the pursuit of these things. We lose sense of our knowledge of self, of our true identity. We place faith in other things. We place faith in outside circumstances rather than ourself. And this leads to the next part of the story. Now, when he goes to prison in the story, he is in there and he is completely forgotten. It's a place where you go and there is no hope. So many years pass and Edmond is just there, rotting away. It is 14 years that he's in this prison. And then at one point, he actually tries to kill himself because he can't handle being in this prison anymore. So eventually, Edmund hears something scratching at his wall, and then he goes to the sound, being very curious as to what he's hearing. He removes the stone where he hears the scratching, and then he finds an old man. He sees someone else there. And it turns out that an old man was actually trying to escape the prison. He spent many years trying to dig a tunnel out, and he actually dug the wrong way. And he dug himself into someone else's cell, which is Edmund's cell. What is very interesting about this old man is that nobody knows how long he's been there, and nobody even knows or remembers why he was imprisoned in the first place. So the prison simply means those times of mental darkness that we have. Sometimes we're led astray in thinking that we can have security and stability in certain ideas and beliefs, in job, relationships, and whatever it may be. But this will just lead us into confusion and despair. And ultimately, this leaves us trapped in prison. We feel like we're living our life just stuck in the mud, feeling like we can't get anywhere. We feel like we're living in a living death. We feel like we can't accomplish anything, or we feel like there's something we must do, but we can't do it. We can see the light, but we can't quite get there. We can see only the walls around us. When the old man comes into your prison cell, that is the Ancient of Days. That is that essence within you, knocking at the door, waiting and helping you escape. The old man simply representing wisdom in this case. The old man, finding Edmund Dantes, is actually relieved that he has found someone because he's been lonely as well. So he teaches Edmund everything he knows about everything. That's combat, philosophy, ways of life, communication, everything. So what they do is they devise a plan to work together. While the old man is teaching Edmund, Edmund helps the old man dig the other way and a way out of this prison. So throughout the years, they're helping each other. And eventually Edmund learns everything the old man has to offer. So while Edmund and the old man are digging the tunnel, what happens is the tunnel caves in on the old man and the old man dies. What's very important to take away here is that the old man finds you. When you are in prison, when you're at your wit's end, when you're ready to hang yourself, symbolically, that is when he comes. When Edmund Dantes tries to kill himself in prison, this means that you are ready to change. You're ready to kill your old ways of being. And then that's when the old man shows up to show you a new way of being. You are transforming from your old self to a better version of yourself. And this is what that represents. You don't have to go out looking for it. All you got to do is have that conviction of change within you. It all starts with the change, and then the change will follow. You will be guided internally to the treasure of Monte Cristo. The guards eventually find out that the old man is dead. So they put him in a sack, they sew it together, and instead of burying people, what this prison does is throw the bag over the edge of a cliff and throw it into the ocean. What Edmund does is he removes the old man's body. He puts himself in the sack to be thrown out. The guards are unaware of the change, and they throw Edmund into the water instead. And this represents how we merge into the old man, and then we're thrown into the water, which can represent a cleansing or baptism, where we are reborn. We have left our old self. We are done with the prison part. We are thrown into the ocean and come out completely reborn. From there, Edmund Dantes goes to the Isle of Monte Cristo and discovers the treasure and finds it for himself. Now, what this represents is you learning from yourself. In meditation, you reach that old soul you have within yourself, so to speak, that ancient wisdom that you can only find within yourself, that you don't find anywhere else outside of yourself or any false ideas and beliefs. As you drop your old ideas, your past, your beliefs that no longer serve you, you become one with the old man within you, the ancient wisdom, your true nature and your true self, the wellspring of all knowledge that dwells deep within you in meditation, who you are besides your ideas and your beliefs, besides your false ideas of status, conception, of anything outside of you. You emerge and become one with the deeper part of yourself. The last thing that the old man gave to Edmund Dantes was a secret map. And this map led to some treasure that if you found it, you would be set for the rest of your life. And this treasure is found on the Isle of Monte Cristo. Now, Monte Cristo means Mountain of Christ. This is not a coincidence, it's called the Mountain of Christ. In one of my previous videos, I explained how higher thoughts are always being high or on a mountaintop. This is where you meet God, on top of a high elevated place, a mountain. So in other words, the treasure that you find that's given to you by the old man is found within you. When you reach that high elevated state of consciousness, once you realize that you don't have to be a victim to your outside circumstances anymore, where you can create the life you want, where all you got to do is let go of your past, your ill thoughts, your inconceived notions of everything. You don't have to be a victim to them. You can elevate yourself and move past them so you can escape this prison that you are in. This prison that we call life, where we feel like the walls are trapped around us and we can't do anything about it. To find the treasure of Monte Cristo simply means to have the awareness that we can do something about our life, that we're not a victim to life anymore. We don't have to be Edmund on the little boat anymore, steering in the middle of the ocean. This is all of us. This story is just a biography of every human being ever. It is everlasting. You are officially armed with superhuman wisdom, where you can overcome any issue and nothing can ever stop you ever again. So you go from Edmond Dantes to the Count of Monte Cristo. You are the king of the mountain of Christ. You are elevated and you are at the top. And once you are at the top, you can't find your way down anymore. We must all get to know ourselves. And sometimes this may not be easy. Sometimes we need to go through those storms in our life to finally go within ourselves and seek answers. Where we don't look for advice from others. We should do this, we should do that. Where we can answer our own questions. And not in an egotistical, narcissist kind of way either. It's more of a peaceful, tranquil kind of way. A way that makes sense. You are the center of your own universe. You know the funny phrase that people say the world doesn't revolve around you? Well, it does and it doesn't. Because you are the center. And you may have heard people say this phrase before, I need to get myself centered. Because this means that your focus is elsewhere. To center yourself means to put your attention back into yourself. And this is also seen with the phrase being self-centered. So there's a balance that needs to be had here. You can't be too arrogant and you can't give attention to things outside of yourself too much. You need to center yourself and find equilibrium, but you can't be too big-headed and self-centered or narcissistic. But in yourself, once you center yourself correctly, that is where you find your answers. That is where you find freedom. We know ourselves best in the silence. We know ourselves best when we are in solitude, where there is no noise. Who would you be if you didn't believe in any negative ideas? Who would you be without anxiety, without depression, with any limiting beliefs? You would be a completely different person. And you find this out through sitting down in silence with yourself. It is said that we use 10% of our actual brain. This idea came into being by Harvard psychologists William James and Boris Sidis. This idea implies that you can unlock more of your brain power. Now, the differentiation I like to make is that we use 10% of our conscious awareness. Now, this is different from our brain because our brain is a physical organ. And like our physical body, it has limits. But our mind has no limit. It is an abstract thing, meaning it has no boundaries. Your mind has no boundaries at all. It only has boundaries that you give it. There are many processes that your body does subconsciously, and this happens in the background, and that's the majority of your life. And there's more things that happen subconsciously than consciously. You breathe, you digest food, you do so many things in the background, and you even have thoughts that exist in your subconscious mind. So you are not aware of about 90% of things happening to you. So your conscious awareness is a very small portion. And that's what I like to highlight as far as this idea goes. We use 10% of our consciousness. A tithe is usually represented by giving 10% of your wages to church. Symbolically, it simply means putting away that 10% and giving it back to the 90%, which turns into 100%. And once you do this, once you give your 10% back into yourself in meditation, in the silence, you will become one with the old priest in the Count of Monte Cristo. You become one with God. You become one with yourself. Back to oneness, back to holiness, where you are whole and you are complete. So that gives a completely different twist to the tithe, to the 10%. You're actually just giving that to yourself. And when you give that 10%, you receive more. This is where we have our creative ideas. This is where we get to know ourselves. This is where we have the capacity to become extraordinary human beings. People come in all the time and they want to tell us how we should be, what we should do with our life, what we could do, what we should have done. And many times this just serves to discourage us. It makes us feel like we weren't doing something right in our life. And so it causes doubt and regret to creep up on us. It makes us feel guilty. Essentially, we're dealing with safeguarding our own mind from the external world, because there is a lot of mass hypnosis happening. There is a lot of ideas that want to get into our head, a lot of ideas that want to take us off of our path. And so we are constantly safeguarding our own mind from these ideas, from sticking into our mind. And in order to cleanse our mind, we must meditate and enter the silence. I often say to people, it's not about being right and wrong. It's about doing what's right for you. What works for somebody doesn't always work for you. People can have many different theories, many different ideas, many different things that they have to say about what life is, how to make money, how to live your life the best way, how to eat, how to do anything. Everything has turned into, you should do this, you should do that. This is bad for you, this is good for you. But what may be good for you is not good for me. So essentially it turns into what's right for me, not what's right in general, because there's no one size fits all. The most important thing for you to find out is what's best for you. And only you know the answer to this. And if you want somebody to help you, it's important for somebody to realize this with you, not for you. Because people want to tell you what to do for you, not work with you. In Matthew chapter 16 and verse 13, it says, "Whom do men say that I am? Whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" In other words, who do men say that I am? Jesus' disciples go on and saying a bunch of theories of what other people say who Jesus is. And it's very particular that he says, "Who do you say I am?" So they give him a whole bunch of different ideas. And then Jesus asks them directly, "But who do you say that I am?" In other words, the question is mystically, who do you say you are to yourself? Who do I say I am? It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks I am. It doesn't matter what the theory is, what somebody says about me. That may or may not be true. But what's most important is, who do you think you are to yourself? That's the question. Within that identity of who you think you are to yourself lies limitless potential, because then you can define who you are for yourself. Your ideas and your beliefs, your past self and your notions of what should be of yourself are always fighting for power. They're always fighting for the top of that mountain, which is your mind. They're always trying to take control. And whatever thought is the strongest is the Count of Monte Cristo, is the king of the mountain of your own identity. So your identity may not even be yours. It could be something that you heard growing up. It could be what somebody has told you from the outside. So now it's your time to take that back. It's your time. It's your turn to put yourself on the top of the mountain and find your identity. And it is simply defining it at that point. But it is a very simple thing. If you are struggling with it, if it is something very difficult, you're doing it wrong. It is a very simple process. The hard part is how much we overthink. We get overwhelmed with our thoughts. That is the most difficult part. With all of those thoughts removed, it becomes very easy. It becomes very, very simple. It's supposed to be simple. Life doesn't have to be so difficult. We make it very difficult with our ideas and our beliefs. But once we throw all of those away, all the ideas that we don't need anymore, it becomes very easy. And to end this video, I'll give you a quote from Socrates, which says, "To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom." And this is because you'd be surprised at how many ideas that we think are ours are actually something else. We're always struggling with the things around us, but we never take into account what we think for ourselves, of ourselves. And this is when we can be deceived, because these thoughts can masquerade as our own. So we are all fooled in the end sometimes. And in reality, only you can answer that question. Who are you really? And what can you find within yourself? If you guys have any questions, as always, leave them in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to answer any comments to the best of my ability. Like this video and subscribe for more content like this. And I'll see you guys in the next one.